Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Haldimand Norfolk.
But we're dealing with the same old Liberal scandals. The Auditor General has released a report against the Liberal government on the multi-million-dollar ArriveCan debacle. The Liberals gave $64 million to GC Strategies, a two-person IT firm that did no actual work and is currently under RCMP investigation. Wow. Today, this House is considering our Conservative motion to get Canadians their money back within 100 days. Will the Liberals vote to give back the $64 million to Canadians? Yes?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we will address that question in a moment, but I am devastated to learn of the Air India crash that occurred earlier this morning. The flight was carrying 242 people, one of whom was Canadian. We are in touch with our international partners, and I have been speaking with Canadians this morning. I am sure that all members of this House will join in extending our collective condolences to the families of those who have lost loved ones this morning. Thank you.
The honourable member for Haldimand Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, we also extend condolences to the families. Mr. Speaker, these Liberals should not be dodging accountability. They want to hide their scandals from Canadians, but the Auditor General report is very, very clear. This Liberal government ignored the rules and allowed insiders to profit to the tune of $64 million. Wow. The Liberals have shown a complete disdain for hardworking Canadians by promoting the very same ministers who engaged in the cronyism and corruption. Why should wasteful Liberal politicians get promoted while Canadian taxpayers get a $64 million bill?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd just like to note that we've implemented the measures recommended by the Auditor General in previous reports as well as internal audits. We have revoked the security clearance of GC Strategies. We have terminated all contracts with GC Strategies. We've barred GC Strategies from future contracts with the Government of Canada. We've taken legal action against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP because, Mr. Speaker, we will never tolerate misconduct from our suppliers or their subcontractors. Thank you.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
The Auditor General released a scathing audit this week on the top ArriveScam contractor, GC Strategies. This two-person company under RCMP investigation received a jaw-dropping $64 million from these Liberals. And the old ministers responsible for this all got promoted by this Prime Minister and are sitting as ministers right there, right now. Wow. Canadians are incensed by these same old Liberal ministers continuing in their corrupt ways. A simple question for their Prime Minister: when are Canadians going to get their money back?
The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will always protect the integrity of our procurement process, which is why we've implemented recommendations from the Auditor General from past reports, such as increased transparency, strengthening oversight, clarifying the roles, the responsibilities across departments. We will always hold bad actors to account, which is why, Mr. Speaker, we've taken legal actions against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP. We will always protect the integrity of our procurement process.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
That answer doesn't cut it for Canadians struggling to pay their bills in record numbers. These old Liberals have turned ArriveScam into a masterclass in rewarding failure and corruption. The old ministers responsible for this scam are the same old ministers sitting over there as cabinet ministers right now. These same old ministers are ignoring the rules, allowing their insiders to get rich with taxpayers' hard-earned money. Why do corrupt Liberal ministers keep getting promoted and Canadians keep getting the bill?
That's a good question. The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me be absolutely clear. We will never tolerate misconduct from our suppliers or their subcontractors, which is why we've taken legal action against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP. We've barred them from contracting with the Canadian government. We've revoked their security clearance, Mr. Speaker. This is the mandate we've been elected on to make sure that we have the best-in-class procurement system in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has confirmed what Conservatives feared. The Liberal government paid over $60 million for a project that should have cost just $80,000. And what's the result? Waste and incompetence. And yet no minister lost their job. And what's worse, they got a reward in being promoted in cabinet. Will the Prime Minister do the honourable thing and vote in favour of our motion to give this money back to Canadian taxpayers? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We will always protect the integrity of our procurement system. That's why we are implementing the recommendations made by the Auditor General in her previous report. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we have referred cases to the RCMP. We've taken legal action against GC Strategies. We've taken away their security clearance. We have terminated all contracts with GC Strategies, and they're barred from contracting with the Government of Canada for the next 7 years. Why? Because we will never tolerate misconduct from our suppliers or their contractors. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General's report is scathing. Contracts were given without any competition, without any oversight, and without any justification. And while Canadians are getting poorer, the Liberals are making certain companies richer, and they're promoting the ministers responsible for this fiasco. Can the Prime Minister explain why, instead of requiring accountability, he's rewarding those who allowed this wasting of public funds? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to be crystal clear. We will never accept any misconduct from our suppliers or their contractors. We will always hold them responsible, and that's why, Mr. Speaker, we've terminated all contracts with GC Strategies over a year ago. We took away their security clearance. We will prevent them from contracting with the Government of Canada for the next 7 years. And, Mr. Speaker, we've also taken legal action against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP. Why? Because we will always protect the integrity of our procurement system. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will be moving closure on C5. The House has been sitting just for 3 weeks, and already he wants to steamroll a bill through the House, and not just any bill. C5 would give the Prime Minister the power to govern by decree when it comes to fossil fuel projects. Bill C5 completely guts environmental assessments. Bill C5 threatens Quebec's powers and the rights of Indigenous peoples. It makes no sense to impose this bill without debate, without committee study, and without hearing from witnesses. Will the Prime Minister let Parliament do its job? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, Canadians and Quebecers spoke loud and clear of the necessity of transforming our economy. Yes, in part because of the trade war, which was provoked illegally by our friends, our neighbors to the south. And we are here to pivot towards a modern economy to help growth in this country, to give good jobs to Quebecers, good jobs to Canadians across the country. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is necessary and it will move forward. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is going to need to leave the banker behind. He's going to need to learn how to act like a Democrat. C5 raises major debates about the environment and Quebec's sovereignty over its own territory. If there's any bill that just needs to be studied thoroughly, it's this one. The Prime Minister has no right to impose C5 under closure when the bill gives him exceptional powers, unlike anything that we've seen before. Is that the Prime Minister's intention, to bypass Parliament and govern by decree like Donald Trump? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers elected 44 Liberal members. That's the highest number of Liberal members from Quebec since 1980. They all ran under a Liberal platform that on page 1 spoke about the necessity of acting quickly to accelerate growth in this country, to break down barriers between provinces and create one Canadian economy. We are acting in a democratic way, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the 44 Liberals from Quebec all voted yesterday to steal $814 million from Quebecers. The Liberals from Quebec voted to make Quebecers pay for election gifts for Canadians. The Liberals from Quebec voted against the unanimous request of the National Assembly of Quebec to reimburse Quebecers. The Liberals elected by Quebecers, who were afraid that the Conservatives would take us back to the Stone Age, abolished the carbon tax, and then they rewarded Canadians with our money. Mr. Speaker, aren't they ashamed of working against their own constituents? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague with respect that we still have a carbon price in Canada for big polluters, for major emitters, and that reduces 3 times the number of emissions as the consumer carbon price. It's a strong carbon pricing system, and the federal price per ton is double the price in Quebec, $59 in Quebec. It's $59 in Quebec and $85 for Canada. We will continue to build a strong economy for Canada while protecting the environment.
Burton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, Liberal consultants are getting millions in contracts without the required security clearances or experience. Worse, they don't even have to do any work. The Auditor General found evidence that nearly half of government contracts were paid but not actually completed. While Liberal insiders get rich, Canadian families struggle to pay for food. In true Liberal fashion, of course, the ministers responsible have been promoted by this Prime Minister. So when will this government support today's Conservative motion to ensure that Canadians get their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the Auditor General for her report. We've already acted on previous recommendations she's put forward. We've taken legal action against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP because we will never tolerate bad behavior from our suppliers or their contractors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, it's clear the Prime Minister has the backs of Liberal insiders and backroom cronies, not hard-working Canadians. It's business as usual for this Prime Minister, who has no plans to cut the gravy train to Liberal consultants, which have no intention to actually complete work. While the RCMP investigate fraud on Canadians, those ministers responsible, they get a pat on the back and they get promoted. Will the Prime Minister today impose a lifetime ban on the founders of GC Strategies and all aligned entities and individuals, and of course, get Canadians their money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've highlighted in previous answers, we will always protect the integrity of our procurement process, which is why we've put in place the Office of Supplier Integrity, which has banned GC Strategies for 7 years. We've revoked their security clearance. We've taken legal actions against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP because we'll never tolerate bad actions from suppliers or their contractors. But when he talks about having the backs of Canadians, Mr. Speaker, they have an opportunity to support a tax cut for 22 million Canadians right after question period. Hopefully they'll do it for a change. Thank you.
Member for Newtecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government ignored procurement rules, accountability, and basic common sense to funnel sweetheart contracts to their friends at GC Strategies, the ones who were behind ArriveCan. They handed out an eye-watering $64 million in taxpayer money to these Liberal insiders with no evidence that any work was actually completed. Will the Liberals take responsibility, show respect to Canadian taxpayers, and get the money back?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Mr. Speaker, I think I've made it abundantly clear in previous answers that we will always protect the integrity of our procurement process, which is why we've taken legal actions against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP. And, Mr. Speaker, we will always hold bad actors to account. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Newtecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, that answer wouldn't take the scum off rice pudding. The report from the Auditor General was clear. No work work was done. The only thing delivered was a check to Liberal insiders. Despite an RCMP investigation and 64 million wasted, the cabinet ministers responsible weren't fired, they were promoted. New titles, bigger offices, all courtesy of this Prime Minister. Talk about failing upwards. Why is it that under this Liberal government, failure is rewarded and Canadian taxpayers get stuck with the bill?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I've noted before, we will always defend the integrity of our procurement process. We will never tolerate any form of misconduct from our suppliers or their contractors, which is why we've revoked GC Strategy's security clearance. We've terminated all contracts more than a year ago. Now the Office of Supplier Integrity has barred them from contracting with the Canadian government. We've referred cases to the RCMP. We've taken legal actions. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because we will always hold bad actors responsible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Quebec, Mactaquac.
What a complete and totally comprehensive non-answer that was. Earlier this week, the Auditor General released their scathing audit stating that the GC Strategies was paid $64 million for the ArriveCan app with little to no evidence of any work having been completed. The Auditor General made note that this is just one example of a likely widespread issue. Mr. Speaker, there may be a new Prime Minister, but it's the same old Liberal government. Will the Prime Minister stand up today, vote for our Conservative motion to return this money to hard-working Canadian taxpayers, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Auditor General for her work and note that we've acted on all the recommendations that she's put forward in the past, but we didn't stop there. We ended all contracts with GC Strategies over a year ago. We've taken away their security clearance. We've taken legal action against GC Strategies. We've referred cases to the RCMP. Why? Well, it's simple, because we will always defend the integrity of our procurement system, and we will always hold bad actors and their contractors accountable.
Honourable Député.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General published in her report on Tuesday that the Liberal government did not respect the rules concerning contracts given to GC Strategies. $64 million were given to this company, made up of just 2 people. And what's more, there's no proof that any work was done. The Conservatives have presented a motion this morning which would prevent this government from getting government contracts for life. Will the Liberal government vote with us and pay back Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and the member will be happy to know that the Office of Supplier Integrity that we put in place took a decision last week to prevent GC Strategies from contracting with the Government of Canada. But over a year ago, we ended all contracts with GC Strategies. We took legal action against the company. We referred cases to the RCMP. And why, Mr. Speaker? Because we will never tolerate misconduct from our suppliers or their contractors. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, we're not saying they should be terminated for 7 years. We're saying they should be barred for life. It's just scandal after scandal from this Liberal government. The Liberals ignore the rules, they let their friends get rich, and it's taxpayers in Beauce and across Canada who are paying the price. The Prime Minister had the opportunity to change things by replacing the ministers responsible for this. But no, what did he do? He promoted them. Why, with the Liberals, are politicians always rewarded, and why is it Canadians who have to pay the bill?
Honourable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We will always defend the integrity of our procurement system, and that's why, Mr. Speaker, over a year ago, we ended all contracts with GC Strategies. We took away their security clearance. We've implemented the Auditor General's recommendations from her previous reports to ensure that bad actors are held responsible. We've referred cases to the RCMP concerning this company. We've taken legal action against GC Strategies. And, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will always hold accountable bad actors. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, what do a foreign sponsor of the assassination of a Canadian on Canadian soil, a tyrant who ordered the dismemberment of a journalist in a Turkish consulate, and a tortuous leader who silences all forms of opposition have in common? I'll give you a hint, Mr. Speaker. They will all be the Prime Minister's honoured guests at the G7. We certainly wouldn't want human rights to get in the way of good business opportunities. That's the new Liberal government for you. Will the Prime Minister see reason and cancel these terrible invitations immediately? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, the world is facing an international security crisis. We must never forget that our sovereignty and our security and our prosperity are linked closely to general global stability. Canada believes in cooperation, and the G7 is an essential forum, Mr. Speaker, which allows leaders from around the world to have productive and frank discussions. Mr. Speaker, security, stability, and protection are necessary for Canadians. At the same time, we need to have these conversations. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, to those fleeing persecution, terror, and war, wrote Justin Trudeau, welcome to Canada. We all remember the fiasco that tweet caused and the impact that it had on our ability to welcome people to Canada. Nevertheless, Justin Trudeau wanted to welcome the persecuted, and now the new Prime Minister has chosen to welcome the persecutors. Mr. Speaker, are there any Liberals on the other side who will speak to their leader, the Prime Minister, and ask him to cancel his invitations to Modi, Ben Salman, and Ben Zayed? Or do we have to understand that for the Liberals right now, human rights, well, they've just been thrown out the door? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, as I've already said, the G7 is an important forum for international discussions with international leaders. At the same time, we have to have the necessary conversations around security and around the protection of our citizens, of Canadians. That is our absolute priority, Mr. Speaker. And we will act. We will protect Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops Thompson-Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, there are questions on the Public Safety Minister's recent recusals. Was the Ethics Commissioner consulted prior to the Public Safety Minister setting up an internal conflict screen? And can the Prime Minister explain to this House why the Minister has recused himself?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, in all national security decisions, my utmost concern is that of the safety of Canadians. I will support law enforcement and national security agencies who do their work impartially and effectively. In an abundance of caution and to ensure that there is no perception of any conflict, I've asked the public safety officials to implement a screen on national security issues relating to the Tamil community.
The Honourable Member for Kamloops Thompson-Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, in British Columbia, an offender was recently sentenced to house arrest for possessing child sexual abuse and exploitation material. Mr. Speaker, the victims of such deplorable materials are living a psychological life sentence. Now, who do I blame for this? Not the judge, not the prosecutor, not the defense lawyer. I blame weak Liberal laws that allow people like this to serve their sentence on the couch. Will this public safety minister recognize this injustice and stop allowing house arrest for people who watch sexual abuse of children?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, let me condemn in the harshest possible terms sexual crimes committed against children. As a former prosecutor, I'm sure my honourable colleague would know that the law on the books today actually holds a mandatory minimum penalty of 1 year imprisonment for these types of heinous crimes. Mr. Speaker, I hope that this does not become a bipartisan issue. We want to work together to implement reforms not only to punish heinous crimes, but to prevent these harms from becoming a lifetime problem for vulnerable children.
The Honourable Member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Mr. Speaker, despite having world-class shipbuilders like Seaspan in Vancouver, BC Ferries has chosen a Chinese state-owned enterprise to build 4 new ships, even though the Prime Minister has declared China the biggest security threat to Canada. Meanwhile, the Liberals are providing BC Ferries with $36 million with no conditions to protect Canadian workers. Will the minister grow a spine of Canadian manufactured steel and make Canadian jobs a requirement for this funding, or will she side with Premier Eby in selling out our ship and steel building industries?
The Honourable Minister of Transport and Internal Trade.
Mr. Speaker, our government will always side with Canadian workers, particularly our steel and aluminum sectors that are being battered right now. I was disappointed and concerned when I learned of this procurement, particularly at this moment when Canadian workers need our support. BC Ferries is entirely under provincial jurisdiction. The support BC Ferries receives from Transport Canada is entirely for operations and there is no capital expenditure.
The Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, what a great non-answer. Look, yesterday, the Minister of Transport refused to act on my concern over BC Ferries buying 4 ships from a Chinese state-owned shipyard and used the excuse that it was not a federal project, which was not the question that I asked. The Liberals should be supporting Canadian shipyards and our economy instead of supporting CCP-owned shipyards and their economy. So again, I ask, will the Liberals attach the obvious condition of buying Canadian-built ships in order for BC Ferries to get their over $30 million Liberal subsidy?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I absolutely agree we need to be supporting Canadian shipbuilders. That's why we have a national shipbuilding strategy. I absolutely agree we need to be supporting Canadian steel and aluminum workers. And further, I agree that we need to be alive to national security challenges and bear those in mind when it comes to procurement. I have spoken to my BC counterpart about this issue, and I would underscore BC Ferries is entirely under provincial jurisdiction. I do not think any BC MPs would challenge federal support for operations of ferries.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, we've learned that Canadian production of critical minerals could fall by almost 60% by 2040. It's not very surprising, as mining projects under the Liberals take forever to develop. However, we have exceptional geological potential in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, including phosphate. Since 2018, we have been working to have it added to the list of critical minerals. Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals incapable of extracting our natural resources?
Of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, mining is crucial to our economy, and Canada is facing American tariffs. We must support our mining workers. That's why we will speed up permitting of new mines by cutting red tape and approving projects within 2 years. This will create jobs for Canadians, grow our economy, and provide more opportunity for mining workers in our country. We hope our members across the aisle will support the One Canadian Act.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has introduced the One Economy Act, which aims to help advance major projects through the regulatory process. We have seen Indigenous people across Canada strongly assert the requirement for consultation before major projects are approved. Can the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations tell us about how consultations will happen under the new Act?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill requires meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples, consistent with Section 35 of the Constitution and the duty to consult. It requires it during both the process of determining which projects are in the national interest and, most importantly, once a project is selected during the permitting process. Both steps require our Indigenous partners. I look forward to continuing to engage with partners to ensure the success of this legislation and the involvement of Indigenous peoples in moving our economy forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the average Canadian family is going to spend $800 more on food this year because of Liberal inflationary spending. The Calgary Food Bank says that 65% of working Calgarians are now experiencing severe food insecurity. What affects this, of course, is bad government budgeting. Deficits lead to inflation, and this government plans to spend 8% more this coming year. The Liberals want to go on a spending spree and force Canadians onto a diet. Will the Prime Minister set the table and finally serve up this year's budget?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, good news for Canadians. Over 22 million Canadians are going to receive a tax cut thanks to the work of this Parliament. And further good news, Mr. Speaker, in the last elections, Canadians coast to coast to coast said the kinds of measures that are helping them, like affordable childcare, like the Canada Child Benefit that's indexed to inflation, like the National Food Program, like the Canada Disability Benefit that will be available next month. These are the kinds of things that are making a difference for Canadians, and we just hope the Conservatives will stop voting against them.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are delaying tabling a budget as it's expected to show a supersized deficit, which will increase inflation even further. The higher the deficits, the higher the inflation. The prices Canadians pay for food is dependent upon this government's budget. But don't worry, the government's budgets only affect Canadians who eat. Will the government stop driving up costs and bring forward a budget so Canadians can feed their families without going further into debt?
Good question. The Honourable Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's look at some economic facts. Inflation has dropped from 8.1 to 1.7% over the last 2 years. Our real GDP numbers are growing. We've had workforce participation at 65.3% versus 62.5% compared to the USA. We have a AAA Moody's credit rating. Mr. Speaker, the fundamentals of our economy are very strong. We have a strong mandate from Canadians, and we're going to continue to work together across the aisle to get things done for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, yes, let's look at some actual facts. Stats Can reports that for every dollar of disposable income, Canadians now owe $1.74, the worst debt ratio in the G7. Oshawa's unemployment is at 9.1%, and the TD Bank warns of a looming recession with 100,000 jobs at risk. This government's response is to blow through $500 billion with no budget, no plan, and no accountability. Will the Liberals finally table a budget, or will their silence continue to speak louder than their commitment to Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I think we all know who brought it home in the last election. It was every member on this side of the House. Why did Canadians vote for this Liberal government? Because they know we're compassionate and we care about the affordability challenges that they're facing. We have a plan to create good jobs, build a stronger economy, and make life more affordable. What do Conservatives have? None of the above. They have complaints, anger, and an absent leader, and divisive rhetoric. We're delivering for Canadians and making Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
In yesterday's Waterloo Regional Record, Ontario businesses are freezing summer hiring. Unemployment in the region is up...
Sorry, I can't hear the question, so we'll start from the top.
In yesterday's Waterloo Regional Record, Ontario businesses are freezing summer hiring. Unemployment in the region is up 7.3%, and TD Bank says there's a looming recession with job losses of 100,000 jobs, causing local businesses to focus on staying lean. Nearly 1/3 of Canadian small businesses have adjusted or paused their summer hiring plans, according to a survey by Merchant Growth. Kitchener businesses need a plan. A budget is a plan. Why does this government refuse to heed our calls and table a budget that reverses their inflationary spending?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, good news for Canadian youth this summer. In addition to the 70,000 Canada summer jobs, we're adding 6,000 more, Mr. Speaker, all across the country. Speaker, for youth unemployment, that is indeed rising. But, Mr. Speaker, what won't help is votes against the measures that Canadians are looking for this summer. Mr. Speaker, what we know is that Canadians vote every single time there's an opportunity to help the constituents in their riding. We won't do that, Mr. Speaker. We'll stand up for Canadian families.
The honourable member for Mission, Matsqui, Abbotsford.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Small businesses fought for 5 years to receive the carbon tax rebate. Now that the money has been dispersed to small businesses across Canada, they are seeking clarification as to whether or not the Canada Revenue Agency will treat it as a taxable benefit. Can the Government of Canada clarify today, yes or no, are carbon tax rebates taxable?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, as we know, small businesses are the backbone of our Canadian economy, and our new government has their back. We're cutting taxes for small businesses and red tape. We're breaking down interprovincial trade barriers by July 1st and helping businesses go digital. We also welcome our middle-class tax cut, which will help entrepreneurs get well-deserved tax break while they can. And, Mr. Speaker, we will always be there for small businesses. And let's forget that we have also cut the carbon tax for small business as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Swift Current, Grasslands, Kindersley.
Mr. Speaker, Saskatchewan is responsible for over 1/5 of the world's canola exports, and China being one of the largest buyers. The communist regime in Beijing implemented 100% tariffs on canola oil and meal, and it's been radio silence from the Prime Minister. Farmers plan their crop rotations years in advance and have had to ride out this trade war all on their own. Will the Prime Minister prioritize our farmers for once and end China's tariffs on our canola, or is he too compromised from Brookfield's $250 million loan from a Chinese bank?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Well, it's a little over 3 weeks, Mr. Speaker, and I'm finally getting to my feet. First and foremost, I want to thank the people of Malpeque for putting me here, and my wife and my family. Mr. Speaker, it's immensely important for us. Mr. Speaker, I'll be traveling to the Prairie Provinces this weekend to meet with farmers to see firsthand the effect of the canola tariffs. But I will say this, Mr. Speaker, we've had the International Trade Minister meeting with officials and the Prime Minister. We're moving in the right direction, and we always stand up for farmers.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, farmers in Souris Moose Mountain and across the prairies are being crushed by 100% crippling tariffs on canola. The Liberal government, they've done nothing. These unjust tariffs are jeopardizing family farms, threatening livelihoods, and undermining the backbone of our agricultural economy. While producers urgently seek leadership and support, the Liberals remain silent. When will the Liberals take real concrete action to eliminate these punitive tariffs on Canadian canola and for once stand up for Canadian farmers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me the opportunity to talk about how important farming is in this country, Mr. Speaker. 1 in 9 jobs, Mr. Speaker, related to farming. 6.75% of our GDP related to farming. Mr. Speaker, I've spoken to every First Minister across this country, and one thing that is in common, we're united in our front against these tariffs, and we will stay that way, Mr. Speaker, because it's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah. The honourable member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, just days after the minister's promise-filled visit to ArcelorMittal this past weekend in Hamilton, they have announced a closure to their long wire mill, resulting in a loss of 153 mortgage-paying jobs in my community. Yesterday, I spoke to a concerned father whose daughter, Amanda, lost her job to the mill closure. Her father stated that the Prime Minister promised tariff relief on TV. Mr. Speaker, when will Amanda get her tariff relief?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the question. These illegal and unjustified tariffs, we're fighting them every day, and they're hurting workers on both sides of the border. Canadian workers, Canadian companies, this government will not be bullied. We're going to fight against these tariffs. Every job, defending every job, every business in Hamilton, in the Sioux, and across Canada.
The honourable member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, I cannot take that answer to the hard workers of Hamilton. This closure is not just a local story. It is a warning sign to all working Canadians in this country. The Prime Minister promised elbows up with the United States and to collect $20 billion. All we've seen is elbows down. I ask this question on behalf of the workers of Hamiltonian's Industrial Corridor and Canadians. Mr. Speaker, to the Prime Minister, is this the end of closures or just the beginning?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Monsieur le Président, je vous rappelle.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind everyone that these tariffs were imposed by the United States. These are American tariffs that were imposed on products. Our government is here to support workers, companies, so we can weather the storm. And we're looking forward to everyone's collaboration to weather the storm. Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Alfred Pélan. Mr. Speaker, our new government was elected to implement a strong vision for nature conservation, both on land and in the water, as well as improved access for Canadians. Can the Secretary of State for Nature inform this House of our upcoming actions to protect nature in Canada? The Honourable Secretary of State for Nature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague from Alfred Pélan for his excellent question. I would also like to take a moment, as I rise for the first time in this House, to thank all the constituents of the wonderful riding of Châteauguay-les-Jardins de Napierville for their trust. Nature is a fundamental part of our Canadian identity. It unites us, and irrespective of their political stripe, all Canadians love nature. Our new government will work with provinces, territories, Indigenous peoples, and all stakeholders to protect nature. That's what a strong united Canada looks like.
For Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, in the last Parliament, these Liberals forced through one piece of censorship legislation after another. Bill C-18, which of course stops the spread of news on social media outlets. Bill C-11, which controls what Canadians can see and say online. And then came Bill C-63, which is bloated censorship legislation, which actually brought in an internet czar and controls freedom of speech. The Liberals claim that this is a, quote, new government, so my curiosity is this: whoever is in charge over there, of course, will they commit to respecting Canadians and, of course, stop censoring them?
L'honorable ministre de l'Identité.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for decades we've witnessed journalists losing their jobs, newsrooms shutting down, and local media going bankrupt. Access to fact-based information from coast to coast to coast is essential to keep Canadians informed. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, my Conservative colleague did not believe that preserving this pillar of our democracy is important. On our side, we chose to pass the Online News Act to ensure that journalists can continue their important work for our country, for our democracy, for our Canadian unity.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
So what I'm hearing is that this is the same old government, absolutely hell-bent on continuing to censor what Canadians can see and say online. My question is with regards to Bill C-63 and going forward. You see, C-63 doesn't just target predators, it targets opinions, it targets freedom of thought, it targets discourse within the online sphere. It institutes thought police, for crying out loud. It's a Trojan horse for further government control. So I ask again, in any future legislation going forward, will this Liberal government commit to respecting Canadians and making sure that they do not censor them?
L'honorable ministre de...
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just about everything that the member said in her intervention is wrong. Bill C-11 ensures that Canadian artists get rewarded, as they should, by online platform, Mr. Speaker. Bill C-11 makes sure that Canadian content can be discovered by Canadians, by my kids, by all of our kids, instead of just international artists, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly what what Bill C-11 does. It gives the opportunity for Canadians to discover Canadian artists, something we should all support, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Mr. Speaker, baseless smears like that are why these Liberals can't be trusted to regulate speech in this country. For years, this Liberal government has determined to censor what Canadians see and say online. From Bill C-11, which put the Liberals in control of YouTube algorithms, to Bill C-18, which squeezed out small and independent media, and to their thought crime Bill C-63. Now we learn in the National Post that cabinet ministers over there are all clamoring over who gets to be responsible for the latest online censorship law. So will the minister who gets to censor what Canadians say please reveal themselves now?
The Honourable Minister.
Even Google agreed that they should do this. Google will pay $100 million to help Canadian journalism in this country. An international US-based company would agree to do that, but the Conservative Party of Canada would vote against this, would prevent that from happening, would want to prevent our media from getting $100 million so that there's more local content, more journalists hired in our newsroom across the country. It is simply unthinkable. It is immoral, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fentanyl has torn through communities and ripped families apart throughout various areas of Canada. Our government was given a strong mandate to keep all Canadians safe. Can the Minister of Public Safety update the House on the recent law enforcement seizures which are keeping drugs off the streets of Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to thank my honourable colleague from Humber River Black Creek for her question and for her hard work. Every member of this House knows someone impacted by the fentanyl crisis. Earlier this week, the Ontario Provincial Police announced 2 operations that seized 43.5 kilograms of fentanyl, the largest ever fentanyl seizure in its history. Through the Strong Borders Act, we will ensure that police across the country have the tools needed to replicate the success of these operations. We will always be there, Mr. Speaker, to keep Canadians protected.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière.
Ils attendent qu'on décède pour garder.
They're waiting for us to die before they give us our money. The issue, Mr. Speaker, is that the government disbursed $70 million to manage a problem. Since 2019, the company only reimbursed 16 victims, rejected hundreds of requests, like Mr. Nantais. When will EPIC be fired and a reimbursement be made so the money can go directly in the pocket of victims in Thetford mines and not in the pockets of consultants and lawyers? The Honourable Minister for Health. Mr. Speaker, first of all, no. And we know what all the victims have gone through. I will go back to my colleague's question later because I don't have an answer right now.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Speaker, during the last election, the Prime Minister said the old relationship we had with the United States based on deepening integration of our economies and military cooperation is over. But yesterday, a leaked document reveals his government is willing to participate in Donald Trump's Golden Dome missile defense system. Former Liberal Foreign Affairs Minister Lloyd Axworthy called this a betrayal of the vision Canadians voted for. Why is the Prime Minister deepening military integration with an unstable partner when we should be pivoting away?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, for 75 years, our government's been has been an essential partner in strengthening NORAD, the only binational command in the world. We know that we live in a more dangerous world. That's why this new government has undertaken a wide array of discussions with the United States about a new security and economic relationship that benefits both of our sovereign nations. For example, the Prime Minister recently made a $6 billion new investment in an Arctic over-the-horizon radar system. We're actively strengthening, Mr. Speaker, Canada's presence in the continent, and we will build our country's national defence capabilities of all kinds.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr.
Speaker, Bill C-5 violates constitutional obligations, eradicates environmental protections, compromises workers' health and safety, and fails to hold corporations accountable in cases where violence is inflicted on Indigenous women and girls, a call to justice from the National Inquiry. Mr. Speaker, we thought Pierre Poilievre lost his seat, but it seems like he's leading the Liberal Party. Maybe that's why, Mr. Speaker. Is that why the government is trying to fast-track Bill C-5?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that Canada is facing a critical moment. We all know our country is being battered by U.S. tariffs. Last week, I was in Saskatoon, and around the table were premiers, NDP premiers, Conservative premiers, Liberal premiers. They all understood now is the time to build Canada, to tear down barriers to trade between ourselves. I really hope all members of this House will recognize the urgency of the moment and support this essential legislation.
And that concludes question period for today. It being 3:09, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at the second reading.